If you're looking for a place to hang out, figure out where you can take the next step in your dairy farming business, then you're in the right spot. Welcome to the High Performance Herd podcast. Here we will inform you what you can do today to future-proof your business for tomorrow. A big thanks to our sponsors Fonterra, IDEXX, Kuru Diagnostics, TasHerd, Tasmanian Dairy Trust, Zoetis, NHIA, Datamars. I'm your host, Andrew Savage. Enjoy this episode of the High Performance Herd podcast wherever you may be listening. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and jump on our Facebook group, the High Performance Herd Project. Today in the High Performance Herd studio, I have Charlie Perotti. Charlie is the Alertys Global Corporate Manager for IDEXX. He has an amazing history with the international dairy industry, including Senior Executive for Alta Genetics Global Services, with clients from 5,000 to 125,000 cows. He later became the production manager for Fonterra's China dairy farm operations before joining IDEXX. Charlie, welcome to the High Performance Herd Project, and we'd love to hear something about yourself that most people don't know.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for inviting me to this podcast. I really appreciate spreading the news on what IDEXX is doing in the world of bovine. As far as my background goes, my brothers and I are still in the farming and dairy business. And in 2013, my brothers and I celebrated 100 years of milking cows on the same location. And that's just a bit upstate New York. But I now live here in California, although I'm still a partner in the family dairy farm.
Oh, wow, that's cool. So as well as international connections, you have a real grassroots connection to the dairyman.
I grew up milking cows, like a lot of your listeners have done as well.
Wow, that's a great story. And in relation to Alertys, IDEXX and the Alertys Milk Pregancy Test, which is what we're talking about, as well as you have a new one that we're going to talk about, which is blood related, but it's been gaining a lot of traction here in Tasmania, and I know in New Zealand they're doing large volumes of milk pregnancy testing. Are you able to tell us a little bit about what the Alertys Milk Pregancy Test is and how does it work?
Yes, just briefly, I'll give a bit of background on the science behind the test, and I promise not to get extremely technical. So with our pregnancy test, we have a portfolio of 4 different pregnancy tests called under the Alertys brand. And all 4 of our tests in our portfolio are looking for specific pregnancy-associated glycoproteins. And we nicknamed those PAGs, PAG, as a nomenclature to talk about pregnancy-associated glycoproteins. Now, that being said, the cow does not produce these glycoproteins. It is when she conceives and that embryo migrates down to the uterus and attaches itself to the uterine wall, the fetus then starts to, and the placenta then start to produce glycoproteins associated with that viable pregnancy. And at about day 28, there is a very high spike in the specific glycoproteins that our patent license allows us to look for. And this is an important distinction because there are competitors in the world to our test, but we are the only company that looks for 4 to 6 specific glycoproteins indicating pregnancy. There are a total, we now know there are a total of 26. We thought there were 22 glycoproteins, but there are 26, and researchers tell me that they expect to be able to find more. And again, what makes us different, our competitors look for one glycoprotein. We look for four, which gives us a accuracy level of about 99% on our blood or milk. But again, all of our tests look for the exact same PAGs or pregnancy-associated glycoproteins.
Well, 99% is it's very accurate. And I guess leading to this question in relation to ultrasounding, which obviously has a human element to it. And what situations then would a test like this have the advantage over using traditional ultrasound?
So that's a great question, and probably, Andrew, that's the most common question I get as I travel the world and introduce the bovine industry to what we're doing at IDEXX. But the key element is that we can run this milk test through a lab like yours at day 28 post-insemination. Okay, and at day 28, again, we're 99% accurate on finding that open cow. And over the years, all of my work in pasture-based systems in South America, New Zealand, Australia, places around the world that have pasture systems, with these short, concise joining periods, what I have always talked about to producers is finding that open cow in the joining period, and then let's do something with that cow as early as possible. And if it's a 9-week joining period or a 12-week joining period, it doesn't matter. But in that period, I want as many chances as possible to get cows inseminated with high quality genetic semen for that next generation of females that I'm going to milk. I don't want to just throw that cow off to the bulls after the joining period. All of us that have familiarity with pasture systems, we all know that those late calving cows are problems. They're not in with the big mob. Their calves are not in with the big mob of calves to raise those heifers. And then, it just spirals downward if when it comes time to inseminate those virgin heifers, the question always is, okay, I have this group of heifers that are younger than the big mob. What do I do with them? Do I breed them early when they're still small? Do I hold them for another 6 months? Or do I end up just selling them if I have that flexibility? But the key is the 99% accuracy, and the human element, as you called it, with ultrasound is real. On the farms that I've managed around the world, I have palpated my own cows, and I always felt like I was extremely accurate and very good. But the reality is, as human beings, we make mistakes. And I can tell you that the IDEXX test, the Alertys test that you're running in your lab, does not get tired. It's on time, and it's very, very accurate as early as 28 days.
That's fantastic. And it's interesting you talk about open cows. We often have a lot of focus on our in-calf rate or our pregnant cows. And I guess one myth that I come across a lot, or one objection, is aging pregnancies. And they say, well, ultrasound gives me cows at 12 weeks or 18 weeks, that type of thing. How can I age pregnancies with a milk pregnancy test? Like, what would be your response to getting a calving date from that cow?
Yeah, again, a very, very frequent question that I get from pasture systems. And it's a hot topic for us at IDEXX, and something that we are continuing to do research with. We are conducting our research with several of the major agricultural universities here in North America. And I say that because it includes Canada and the US. And this is something that we're looking at. What I can share with you today from their research and what we've done internally is that it's coming. We know that we can do it, but at this point, we don't have enough data to publish a paper. We're hoping, like everyone, that we can get this published sooner rather than later. But it will be the next one of the next things coming as we continue to research these glycoproteins.
Fantastic. Would it be fair to say that if a farmer has really good records, I guess an insemination record, and can use the Alertys Milk Test at strategic points very early on, like you say, 28, 30 days, that you could potentially get a calving date from that?
Absolutely. No matter where we're farming beef or dairy, but good records and good data is essential. But we will be able, again, Andrew, the earlier we find the pregnant cow, the more concise we can be as far as how far pregnant she is. So if we're checking these cows the first time at day 28, day 30, day 32, if you sample once a week, it would be out to day 34. But if we sample within that week, we can pinpoint the exact time that that cow was inseminated.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we actually did that on the High Performance Herd Project farm. We carried out a milk pregnancy test. It was on the 20th of February. We conducted that test in our lab on all of the cows in one hit. So it was definitely post that 30-day mark. We had 844 samples for pregnancy testing. And out of that 844, 761 showed as pregnant on our test, 69 as empty, open, and that's 9%. And then we had 14 cows that showed as a recheck. And this is, I guess, what a lot of farmers are saying, what's this recheck? And they see it as a problem. And, there's something wrong with your test, obviously. Why have I got these cows? I have to recheck. What is a recheck? And why are there cows in this category?
This is a great topic and one of my favorite, because my focus my entire life in bovine has been on aggressively creating pregnancies, right? Because pregnant cows are the driver of our economic success on a dairy farm. We all know that. And that's why I'm so aggressive at getting as many cows pregnant as possible within that joining period, these tight joining periods. The recheck, I agree with you. A year and a half ago, 2 years ago, our clients here would call me and talk about the recheck cows as being a negative. And it's not a negative, Andrew. It's actually a positive, because it gives us a new data point that we have never looked at or never been able to look at accurately in the past. And when we have a cow that ends up a recheck on our test, that means there are glycoproteins present, right? If there were no glycoproteins, that cow she's empty or open cow. If there's a high level of glycoproteins, that cow's pregnant, right? We know that very, very accurately. The recheck cows are somewhere in between there, but not high enough for us to call them pregnant. And what that tells us is that particular cow possibly lost her embryo 2 to 3 days before testing, or she has a non-viable, unhealthy fetus in her uterus that she's going to lose in the next few days. After looking at data from Europe, Canada, the US on these recheck cows, the one thing I can tell you is we know that 88 to 90% of these cows are going to test open or empty in another week. So as a dairy farmer, I start looking at this data point as true value, because now I have for the first time, a number that will start to give me an indication on my farm about early embryonic death. And it's very, very interesting what these glycoproteins are telling us about early embryonic death. And embryonic losses, they are the hot topic globally right now. I was at an ADSA conference a few months back. It was a 3-day conference on reproduction, and the focus for the 3 days by all the veterinary researchers here in North America was early embryonic losses and what to do about them. So I'm just going to add one more thing. As we started looking at these recheck numbers across our client base, it was extremely interesting to me as a dairyman that we have some herds that will run week over week over week at 2% recheck, right? Very good, very low, like your 14 cows. That's a very good number. But we also had clients that would run as high as 8, 10, 12, even 14% rechecks week over week. And as I started bringing this data point back to them, as you can imagine, the owners and managers were quite concerned about why were they at 10% rechecks when, a farm, a neighboring farm maybe is at 2%, because embryo losses cost us money. There's no question about it. And so once you identify that number, you as a farm owner can make a decision. Can I live with that? Am I okay with that? Or do I want to get my veterinarian involved, my nutritionist involved, whoever is an advisor to the farm, to talk about what could be causing this high level of embryonic losses?
That's right. Like, that's great. It gives us an opportunity to get, the vet involved, or a nutritionalist, or blood checks, or whatever you like, really points to what that problem possibly could be. And it's really interesting you say that, because that chance to recheck an animal early in joining then gives us a chance to intervene. So empty and recheck cows, that's a really specific area of management that's very timely at that point of the season for us in our seasonal system.
I totally agree. And again, I'm very aggressive for these tight joining periods. And this is where the vet really can bring value to the farm, right? What kind of a resync program? Okay, now we know these cows are empty. What are we going to do about them? And are we going to use a simple recheck? Or a simple resync? Or are we just going to monitor them to watch for their next natural heat? But again, this is where the vet starts to bring real value to those dairy farms when we have the data, right? Without the data, we have for decades been guessing what our embryonic losses really were.
And then we can bring these other tools from our belt. Like, we've got cow collar data, so we can see she is actually going to cycle. And then if she's getting late, we've got products like SGL semen, which will bring her back nearly a round, or half a round at least. So it's a really multi-prong approach. And speaking of multi-prong, you also have a different Alertys test, and that is blood related. And I guess we've seen an opportunity for rechecks. If someone doesn't want to send 2 or 3 milk samples in, we do have another tool that we can use that involves just a very small prick of blood from a tail.
Correct. This is one of the most exciting new products that we've launched in quite a long time. And we have been systematically launching this product around the world over the last year and a half. We will be launching this month in April in Japan, and later this year in Korea. But in many parts of the world, this is becoming a very popular test. It's a small cowside test a small cassette, very similar to a lateral flow COVID test that you may have seen or taken at some point in time. But it's the same principle. It's lateral flow. So if you get a bit of blood from the cow's tail, we supply with the cassette, we supply a small plastic a pipette to take the exact amount of blood needed, which is not very much. It's a very small amount. You put it in the cassette. You follow the blood with a buffer, chase buffer, that we also supply in the package. And typically, Andrew, we have a control line and a test line, much like any lateral flow test that you would have seen. And typically the control line will pop up at 4 or 5 minutes after the chase buffer is put in. If there is no control line, that test is invalid. We have to throw that cassette away and try another one. Now, I can tell you that I have run thousands of these tests, and I have yet to have a single cassette that did not show a control line. So it's a very robust test. It's very tough. Control line, a pregnant cow, typically, if her test line will show up positive 6, 7, 8 minutes after you put the chase buffer in. But the point that we have to remember is with this Cowside test, and it truly is a Cowside test, with this test, we don't want a dairyman to call that cow open, or a beef farmer, producer. We don't want to call her open until we let that test sit on a flat surface in its lateral flow position for 20 minutes. At 20 minutes, if we have a control line and no test line, that cow is open. She's empty. She's not pregnant.
It's great. And for the price of a cup of coffee, or maybe a couple of cups of coffee at Starbucks, the cost of sending a pregnant cow to the works based on an ultrasound or a palpitation test, it's really a no-brainer to be able to do that.
I agree. And Andrew, the other place that farmers are coming back to me where they're using it effectively is, we all have this cow that her estrotech or whatever device we may have on her rump may indicate she might be in heat, but we're not sure. We're not absolutely positive. We certainly don't want to inseminate a cow that is pregnant. So farms are saying, hey, look, before I spend the money on semen for this cow or even more expensive sex semen for this cow, I want to know for sure she's open or empty before I re-inseminate this cow again.
Or potentially intervening with prostaglandin or something to stimulate a heat, and she's pregnant. There's a fair cost associated with aborting a cow by accident as well.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, I think, some farmers have all made that mistake. You've seen a lot of different systems around the world, and you've been involved in all, like seasonal systems and year-round systems, which are probably more commonplace in New York State with your farmers. I'd love to know, with your vast experience from the grass right to the glass ceiling, what is one key takeaway that you would love farmers to come away with?
To me, the key takeaway for all of our dairies is that pregnancy, the number of cows we get pregnant in that joining period, right? Again, after being worn out from a heavy calving season, getting those cows up and running, they're at their peak milk production when it's time for us to start our joining period. I am very, very aggressive in those joining periods. I'm getting cows set up to get semen in them as quick as possible at the beginning of the joining period. But again, the key takeaway is I want to know that empty cow as soon as possible so I can do something with her. Whatever my vet is going to advise me as far as a follow-up program, a simple prostaglandin resync or a complicated full resync off-sync. But to me, Andrew, the key takeaway with this test is at 99% accuracy, I know that cow is empty and I'm going to do something with her.
That is great advice, really powerful. So many people questioning their empty rates and, where have I gone wrong? To me, it's just a no-brainer. You start here, start at 30 days, and you find out if she's empty, and then you have another crack at her, why wouldn't you do that for the price of an ultrasound, basically, or not much more than? Where can people go to find out more information? A lot of people who may be curious about, one, the milk pregnancy test and the Alertys on-farm test.
So come to our website, IDEXX.com, and go to our livestock, poultry, dairy site. So it's 1 or 2 clicks and it will take you right there. And in that site, you can, because we're a publicly traded company, we're very transparent, but on our website, you can do all the research necessary behind our livestock research and our testing for not just for pregnancy, but for bovine diseases, Brucella, IBR, BVD, Neospora. Neospora is becoming a bigger issue with dairy farmers, and we're doing more and more testing on that disease for farms as well. But our website's the best place to go. And just as a teaser, our research continues, and hopefully by the end of this year, people like Dr. Kai Poehler at Texas A&M and our other research partners around the world, we're going to have some other interesting news and developments about what these glycoproteins are telling us about that cow's life and what she's doing and what we can expect from her.
Watch this space. And also know in Australia, IDEXX here have developed, I think it's farmframeworks.com.au. I'll drop that in the show notes just to confirm that I've got that right, but it's farmframeworks.com.au because IDEXX is a big company and you do have a lot of, I know, water testing, all sorts of types of things. So I think they've made a specific bovine website here for Australasia. So that's a handy tool.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, really want to thank you a lot, Charlie. I know you're a busy man and you're about to head off to Asia for 4 weeks to do exactly what we're talking about here. So I wish you well with that trip, and just want to thank you very much for coming and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and to all of my friends in Tasmania. I've been coming to Tasmania for many years. I love Tasmania, and I'll be back at the end of May, early part of June.
Great. We look forward to catching up with you then. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for listening to the High Performance Herd podcast. Thanks to the sponsors, Fonterra, IDEXX, Koru Diagnostics, Tas Herd, the Tasmanian Dairy Trust, Zoetis, NHIA, Data Mars. Feel free to subscribe and review the podcast. Share it with your friends. The more, the merrier. Jump on Facebook, search the High Performance Herd Project, and you're very welcome to join the High Performance Herd private Facebook group. If you want to see a video of this podcast, jump on YouTube or www.highperformanceherd.com, where you'll see a link to these sponsors for more information on the High Performance Herd Project, which is a real-life dairy farm spring block calving right here in Tassie. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.